the lost twin. I always believed our home was a sanctuary, a place where laughter and warmth filled the air. But lately, it's become a breeding ground for whispers and shadows. My wife, Clara, insists that our son, Jacob, has a twin brother named Ethan who died at birth. She speaks to Ethan, sets a place for him at dinner, and even buys him clothes. Her conviction is so strong that it's starting to fray the edges of my reality. Each night, as I tuck Jacob into bed, I feel a chill that doesn't belong in our cozy nursery. The room seems to sigh with a sadness that I can't explain. Clara says it's Ethan's way of staying close to us. I've tried to reason with her, to show her the birth records, but she just smiles and tells me that some things transcend paperwork and proof. The first time I heard it, the soft giggle from the empty corner of the room, I told myself it was just the house settling. But then, it happened again, a whisper so clear it made my heart stop. "Daddy," it said, and I turned to find Jacob sound asleep. Was my mind playing tricks, or was Clara right all along? I decided to investigate, to delve into the hospital archives myself. There was no record of Ethan, no paper trail of a second child. Yet, the nursery toys would sometimes move on their own, and I'd catch glimpses of a small figure darting just out of sight. It was becoming harder to dismiss Clara's beliefs as mere grief. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky a melancholic orange, I saw it. A little boy, identical to Jacob, standing at the foot of our bed. He was there one moment and gone the next, leaving behind a cold spot and the faint scent of baby powder. The days grew shorter, the nights longer, and with each passing hour, the presence of the unseen twin grew stronger. Clara seemed more distant, lost in a world where Ethan was as real as the sun we could both see and touch. I began to dread the coming darkness, the time when the veil between here and there grew thin. The whispers grew louder, insistent. I'd wake in the dead of night, my breath caught in my throat, as if someone were pressing a cold hand against my chest. Clara slept soundly beside me, oblivious to the unseen twin who haunted our home. I tried to ignore it, to chalk it up to stress or lack of sleep. But the nursery became a battleground, a place where reality and the ethereal collided. Shadows danced on the walls, elongated figures that twisted and writhed. I'd find Jacob's toys arranged in intricate patterns, as if Ethan were trying to communicate. One evening, as I sat by the crib, I heard a voice, a whisper that seemed to come from the very air itself. "Why did you forget me, Daddy?" it said. I turned, expecting to see Jacob, but he was fast asleep. The room smelled of damp earth and decay, and I knew Ethan was near. Clara's obsession grew. She'd spend hours in the attic, poring over old photo albums, searching for any trace of Ethan. I'd find her weeping, clutching a faded picture of a baby swaddled in white. He was real, she'd say, her eyes wild. He existed. I couldn't deny it any longer. The house held secrets, layers of memories that refused to fade. I researched the property, digging into its history. A century ago, a family had lived here, a mother, a father, and twin boys. The boys were inseparable, their laughter echoing through the halls. But tragedy struck. The twins fell ill, and one night, one of the boys named Ethan had simply vanished. The parents searched, tore the house apart, but he was gone. They moved away, leaving behind a grief-stricken home. The echoes of their loss lingered, waiting for someone to hear. Clara's conviction terrified me. She'd sit in the nursery, rocking an empty cradle, singing lullabies to a ghost. I'd watch her, torn between love and fear. Was she losing her mind, or was there something more? I'd hear her whispering to Ethan, promising to find him, to reunite the brothers. And then, one stormy night, it happened. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the nursery. Clara stood by the window, her face pale, her eyes fixed on the darkness beyond. "He's here," she said. "Ethan has come back." I followed her gaze, and there, in the corner of the room, stood a boy, a mirror image of Jacob, but with eyes that held centuries of sorrow. He reached out, his fingers brushing against the glass. "Daddy," he whispered, and I felt the weight of 100 years pressing down on me. The house groaned under the weight of its secrets. Clara's obsession consumed her, and I watched helplessly as she danced on the precipice of madness. The unseen twin, Ethan, had become more than a ghost. He was a presence, a force that pulled us deeper into the abyss. I researched the old family, the one that had lived here before us. Their tragedy was etched into the very walls, and I wondered if they, too, had heard the whispers, felt the chill of a lost child. The birth records remained silent, but the heart of the house beat with memories. One night, as the moon hung low in the sky, I followed Clara to the attic. She held an old leather-bound book, its pages yellowed and brittle. "This was theirs," she said, her voice trembling. "The family who lost Ethan." The book revealed a pact, a desperate bargain made in the darkest hours. The parents had sought a way to bring Ethan back, to bridge the gap between life and death. They'd found an ancient ritual, a ritual that required sacrifice. A living child for a dead one. Clara's eyes burned with determination. "We can do it," she whispered. "We can bring him back." I tried to reason with her, to remind her of Jacob, our living son. But she was beyond reason, her grief a tempest that threatened to swallow us whole. She gathered herbs, drew symbols on the nursery floor, and chanted words that echoed through the ages. I watched, torn between love and fear. The room pulsed with energy, shadows writhing like snakes. Clara held Jacob in her arms, tears streaming down her face. "Ethan," she called. "Come back to us." And then, it happened, the air thickened, the walls trembled, and a figure materialized. Ethan stood before us, his eyes hollow, his skin translucent. He reached for Jacob, and Clara offered our living son to the ghost of the dead. But I couldn't let it happen. I lunged forward, pulling Jacob away. The room erupted, a cacophony of screams, whispers, and the sound of a heart breaking. Clara's eyes widened, and she collapsed, her strength drained. Ethan faded, his form dissolving into mist. "You broke the pact," he said, his voice a wisp of wind. "Now we are all lost." The house shook, its walls cracking. Clara lay unconscious, and I cradled Jacob, both boys in my arms. The room spun, reality unraveling. And then, in the chaos, I glimpsed the truth. The birth records had lied. Ethan had existed, but he was never meant to return. As the house collapsed around us, I made my choice. I whispered to the unseen twin, promising to keep his memory alive. And then, with a final scream, the world shattered. Now, in the ruins of our home, I hear the whispers, the echo of a forgotten pact. Clara is gone, lost to the other side. Jacob clings to life, but I see Ethan in his eyes, a shadow waiting to be reborn. And so, I write this, the story of a father torn between two sons, a house haunted by love and loss. If you ever visit our old home, listen carefully. You might hear the soft giggle of a child, the rustle of pages in an ancient book, and the echo of a promise unkept. Story 2. Unseen Eyes. I had always felt a strange connection to the old family house, perched on the edge of the sleepy town. It was as if the walls whispered secrets meant only for me. One lazy summer afternoon, driven by nostalgia, I climbed up to the attic. The air was thick with dust and memories. As I rummaged through boxes of forgotten relics, my hand brushed against the leather-bound spine of an old photo album. Curiosity piqued, I opened it to find a collection of my childhood photos. There I was, in various stages of youth, but something was amiss. In every photo, a dark figure loomed in the background. A chill ran down my spine as I realized this figure was present in every single memory captured on film. It was always there, watching, an unseen spectator to my life. The figure was indistinct, a mere shadow, yet its presence was unmistakable. It stood at a distance, never interacting, just observing. With each turn of the page, the figure seemed to inch closer, its form becoming more defined, more menacing. I couldn't recall anyone or anything like it from my childhood. I decided to investigate further, hoping to uncover some logical explanation. I visited the local library, delving into town records and old newspapers. That's when I stumbled upon a series of articles about a string of unexplained disappearances in the town, dating back to the time the photos were taken. The night brought no respite. I lay in bed, the album's images haunting my dreams. I dreamed of being watched, of eyes that followed me through the darkness. I woke up with a start, the feeling of being observed lingering long after the dream had faded. Determined to seek answers, I returned to the attic the next day. As I ascended the creaky stairs, a sense of dread settled over me. The album lay open, as if waiting for me, but I noticed something new, a photo I hadn't seen before. It was a picture of me sleeping, and the dark figure was now at the foot of my bed, its features horrifyingly clear. The town's archives revealed a grim history. Decades ago, a family had lived in our house, the Harrisons. They were reclusive, rarely seen outside their home. Rumors whispered of strange rituals performed in the dead of night, and the townsfolk avoided them like a plague. The Harrisons had a daughter, Evelyn, who vanished without a trace. Her disappearance coincided with the sudden abandonment of the house. The townspeople speculated that the family had fled, leaving behind their dark secrets. But what had become of Evelyn? I dug deeper, tracing the family's lineage. The photo album held more clues. In one picture, Evelyn stood by the window, her eyes wide with terror. The dark figure was there too, its form elongated, tendrils reaching toward her. I shuddered, wondering if it had taken her. As I delved into the past, I discovered an old diary hidden beneath the floorboards. The brittle pages revealed Evelyn's torment. She wrote of sleepless nights, of whispers echoing through the walls, of unseen eyes watching her every move. The entries grew frantic, desperate. She feared for her sanity. I became obsessed. The house consumed me. I slept little, haunted by nightmares of the dark figure. It was no longer content to remain in the background. It appeared in my waking hours, lurking at the edge of my vision. Its eyes, piercing, malevolent, bore into my soul. I reached out to a local historian, Dr. Samuel Blackwood, hoping he could shed light on the Harrisons. His office smelled of old books and pipe tobacco. He listened intently as I recounted my discoveries. His eyes widened when I showed him the photo album. "Evelyn," he murmured, tracing her image. "She was the key. The Watcher. What does it want?" I asked, my voice trembling. Dr. Blackwood leaned closer. "The Watcher feeds on fear, on the essence of the living. It binds itself to a bloodline, generation after generation. The Harrisons tried to break free, but it followed them. Now it's chosen you." Dr. Blackwood and I delved deeper into the Watcher's origins. The diary hinted at a ritual, a desperate attempt by the Harrisons to sever the connection. They had sought the help of an old crone, Madame Alohan, who lived deep in the forest. We followed the faded map to her secluded cabin. The air grew colder as we approached. Madame Alohan greeted us with rheumy eyes and gnarled hands. She listened to our tale, her expression grave. "The Watcher," she whispered, "is a parasite. It feeds on fear, but it also craves release. It wants to be seen, acknowledged." "But why?" I asked. "Because it was once human," she said. "A soul trapped between worlds. It yearns for redemption." She handed me a vial of murky liquid. "This is the Watcher's essence. Confront it. Show it the photos. Speak its name." Back in the house, I faced the photo album. The dark figure loomed, its eyes burning into mine. I whispered the name, Evelyn Harrison. The room trembled. Shadows writhed. The figure stepped out of the photo, its form shifting. It was Evelyn, her face twisted, eyes hollow. "Release me," she pleaded. I uncorked the vial. The Watcher's essence glowed. I splashed it on the figure. It screamed, its form unraveling. The walls cracked, and the house groaned. "Thank you," Evelyn whispered, fading into light. "Remember me." The house collapsed, leaving only rubble. Dr. Blackwood and I stood outside, staring at the ruins. "The Watcher is gone," he said. "But it'll find another bloodline." I glanced at the photo album, now empty. We'll break the cycle, I vowed. As I walked away, I felt eyes on my back. The Watcher was gone, but its legacy lingered. I wondered if I'd ever truly escape its gaze. And so, dear listener, beware the unseen eyes. They watch, they wait, and they hunger for release. The end. Subscribe for more. Thank you.